Hey everyone and welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be an exciting one, a fun one and an informative one because we will be talking about 4 different Kiko Milano eyeshadow formulas. Kiko Milano is a little bit difficult to find all over the world. Some countries carry it, others don't, but if your country carries Kiko Milano or if you ever happen to travel to a country that has Kiko Milano, then I hope that this video comes in handy. So I have 4 different formulas. I also tried the cream that comes in a pot. I didn't really have a color that I really liked, so I gave it away. I don't really remember much about it, but if I find a color that I like in the future, I might try it. I'm not sure, no promises. But anyway, so as I said, I have tried 4 different formulas. I've tried a regular powder eyeshadow and I've tried a powder eyeshadow that can be used both wet and dry. To be honest, all powder eyeshadows can be used both wet and dry, so make of that what you will. But I also tried their stick eyeshadows, and I've also tried the one that comes in a kind of liquid lipstick bullet or liquid lipstick packaging with a dofa. I have 4 of them on my eyes today. I know that my eye look doesn't really look very complicated because I've tried and I have applied all of the light shades that I have in my collection on my eyes. But I thought that we can start talking about what I've had the longest experience with and move from there. So let's do it. A staple in my collection and an eyeshadow that I always use every time I apply eye makeup is this one in particular. Looks boring because it's just a champagne, but honestly, a champagne is what I use every day because I use it to highlight my inner corner. I am still someone who loves applying an inner corner highlight. I don't think I will ever stop being that kind of person. But let me talk about the formula. So this is called the Kiko Milano Smart Color Eyeshadow, and I have the shade 02. It's a champagne with some fine like pearly particles that make it kind of like this glowy, nice and glowy sort of sheeny champagne. This is it on the back of my hand. You can definitely tell that it's glowy. Since I only have one of these, yesterday I was at Pupa and I swatched a few to see what the formula was like across the board. So in the Smart Eyeshadow formula, there is some shimmery shades, there's pearly shades, and there's matte shades. I swatched a couple of each. Now let's talk about the matte ones first. The matte ones, in my experience, are the most powdery ones. They are the driest to the feel, but that being said, they're really not that dry at all. I imagine, I'm not experienced with them, so I can only assume that they're extremely easy to apply and blend, and they seem to have a good grip because they stuck directly to my to the back of my hand, even without a primer, and that's saying a lot. Now, sometimes swatching something on the back of your hand isn't really indicative of how it's going to perform on your eyes, but because I've already tried one of these, I can kind of imagine how it's going to behave. I think that the formula of the matte shadows is a bit dry, but it's still workable. The pigmentation seems to be really nice, and it seems to be really easy to blend. I applied it and then I started to kind of start blending the outer rims of my swatch, and it blended smoothly. It didn't kind of create patches or completely dissipate off of the back of my hand. It seemed really lovely. The pearly ones, which is more like the one that I have, it's incredibly smooth for the application. Applies beautifully both with a finger and a brush. The pigmentation is beautiful and it lasts extremely well on the eyes. I've had this makeup on since about 8 and now it's 7:30 at night, so it's almost been 12 hours, and the fact that my eyes still look as beautiful and as intact as this is definitely telling. So as I was saying, These have incredible longevity, the color payoff is lovely, the sheen that it gives is beautiful without looking textured or seeming textured. It doesn't accentuate anything that you don't want to accentuate, be it dryness or texture or anything like that. It's really, really lovely and I really like it. As you can see, I mean, ever since getting it, I really haven't even wanted to acquire another inner corner highlight because in my eyes, this is absolute perfection. Especially if you have a skin tone that's similar to mine, I think that you're really gonna enjoy this if you enjoy an inner corner highlight. Even applying it all over the lids, which I have done a few times, I have had the best experience with this and I highly, highly recommend it. Now, the more shimmery ones seem to be more textured and I might even assume that they have a little bit of fallout, but nothing too crazy. When they applied, it seemed very, very smooth and somewhat buttery, somewhat really kind of almost creamy to the touch. Nothing creamy like you would imagine or feel even the ColourPop Super Shocks. Nothing like that. They are a powder eyeshadow at the end of the day. They perform and behave like a powder eyeshadow, but they definitely have the stick and the grip and the longevity. And the shimmer seemed to be fine, but still give a semi-textured look. Sometimes when the shimmers are so smooth and so small, it almost looks like a satin, but the shimmer particles of the smart ones seem to have a nice size to them and make them look unique and textured without behaving or being a little bit more tricky like a glitter can sometimes be. So I highly, highly recommend these and I really, really enjoy the formula. When it comes to the packaging, I mean, as you can see, they're all gonna be plastic. This has a plastic clear lid without a mirror. I don't really see that as a deal breaker because, I mean, it's a single eyeshadow. What can I see looking at myself in the mirror of a single eyeshadow? I mean, honestly. Next is one that I used to have a shade of that I decluttered because it was very similar to everything else that I got and that I've already had. But I decided that I missed the formula and I wanted to get another shade. So I'm talking about the Longlasting Wet and Dry Use eyeshadow in the shade 200. I believe I might have had the shade called Champagne. I can't remember what number it is, but this is the shade 200 and this is how it looks. It's kind of like a purpley taupey bronze. It is so, so, so stunning. This is the formula that can be used both wet and dry. I mean, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. I love these so much. Oh my gosh, look at that beautiful sheen and reflection. So beautiful, so beautiful, let me tell you. I have used these wet a couple times, but it's never my preference to dampen a brush and then dip it into eyeshadows. It's just not my preference. If I wanted a creamy eyeshadow, I would use a cream eyeshadow. So I'm not necessarily someone who does that often to compare a different eyeshadow that can be used wet or dry to this. And as I said at the beginning, in all fairness, all powder eyeshadows can be used both wet and dry. I'm just not one to do it. And that's all I can say, really. But when it comes to this, applying it wet doesn't change the texture of the outer layer. Sometimes when you use something wet, it can create a hard pan. That means that the powder is kind of hard and almost impossible to like pick up with a brush. So you're going to need to scrub the base or the top layer of it so that you can get back to that soft and powdery surface, I guess. It hasn't really done that with this, which is always a good thing, but this is meant to be used wet. So I would imagine that there's supposed to be some technology incorporated in the making of this to make it stand being used damp and dry. The result of using it damp is definitely more metallic and it makes the pigmentation or the color appear more vividly. Like, as you can see, you can tell that there's something really sheeny on the back of my hand, but sometimes when you look at it like that, you can't really tell the color necessarily. You can't see how nuanced it is and how almost duochrome it is. It's absolutely beautiful. But when you apply it wet, you can definitely tell what the actual shade is like, which is definitely something that I find very unique with this formula specifically. All of the shades are shimmery, all of the shades are high sheen, all of the shades are also really easy to apply and really easy to blend. I've swatched a few and I've had one before this, and let me tell you that the application is absolutely easy and dreamy. I love applying this with my finger at first. I like to basically dip my finger in it and swirl it and then apply it all over, and then take a blending brush and just run it across the outer edges to make it look smoother. But it's such an easy application, such an easy process, such an easy product to use, and I highly recommend these. I love these, and if I had less makeup, I would definitely pick up more of these because the shades are so beautiful. You can definitely find a lot of neutrals and a lot of really colorful ones. They have some beautiful greens and some beautiful blues. There's even a beautiful kind of golden, yeah, like a golden yellow, like a marigold or something. It's so pretty. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love these. Now, the packaging here is bulkier. There is a mirror inside, which, as I said, really doesn't mean much to me because it's a single eyeshadow mirror. What can you see, really? You can barely see your lips in the same frame. I don't really care for a mirror in single eyeshadows. You might. I don't. And that's definitely up to personal preference. Next up is what I have the most of, because once I discovered it, I just became obsessed. I have 8 of these, and I am talking about the Kiko Milano Long-Lasting Eyeshadow Stick 8-Hour No Transfer. I have 8 of these, and I believe I might have a swatch of all of the 8 shades over on my Instagram. If I don't, remind me. Anyways, so these are absolutely gorgeous, but they are flawed. They are not the most long-lasting cream eyeshadows, and I will never ever use them without a primer, and I will never ever use them without a base if I know that I'm going to be wearing them for at least 12 hours. If I'm going to be just wearing them for maybe 12 hours, I might use them on their own with a primer underneath, that's for sure. But if I'm planning on wearing them for more than 12 hours, which happens sometimes with the crazy days that I have, since it happens sometimes, I will layer a corresponding shimmer, a shimmer that complements the shade, just with my finger all over it, to just like give it a little bit longer, to give it a little bit better chance of lasting longer. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, let's talk about the color range. I don't really remember seeing unconventional, unique colors that are matte. All of the colors that I've swatched, I haven't swatched a black and I haven't swatched like a conventional shadow because I'm not interested in those shadows per se. But all of the colors that I've seen and all of the colors that I have a sheen and a shimmer to them, which I love. I love a good sheeny, shimmery, sparkly eyeshadow stick. So all of them, at least most of them, are shimmery and most of them are sheeny. You can use them in so many different ways. You can use them on their own. You can use them as a base, and you can use them to line. Either you can line your lower lash line, or you can line your upper lash line. You can use it as a liner that you can smudge, and you can use it as a liner that you just keep, you know, with the full saturation that applying it as a liner will give it. You know, when you apply something as a liner, it's definitely going to be more saturated and pigmented than when you go ahead and smudge it with a brush. Both ways, either when used as a liner or when you smudge it with a brush, the color is still, I mean, like the intensity of the color definitely changes, but when you smudge it, the color doesn't just disappear and become clear with just a little bit of glitter. It maintains its color, but it definitely has levels of sheerness that you can explore the more that you smudge it, the more that you blend it. One of my favorite things to do with these on the daily, because I use these every single time I apply eyeshadows. I'm not only the Kiko ones, but with all of my eyeshadow sticks. I have a ton of eyeshadow sticks. I love eyeshadow sticks. But I always use an eyeshadow stick either just as a base or as a one and done sort of shadow smudged with my finger. When I use these as a one and done shadow, I only smudge and I only blend the outer edges. So what I do is that let's swatch it, okay? I have the shade 5 here, which is absolutely beautiful. Okay. So this is the shade 5. I hope that you can see. Look at that, it's so pretty. But when I apply these as a one and done, the area that I will tap, and I only tap, the area that I tap is only the outer edges. I just tap the outer edges to make sure that it blends nicely. You definitely get a fair amount of time to blend it, and you can definitely tell that it blends gorgeously. It just blends beautifully, and it maintains the color, especially when you just smudge or blend the outer edges. The color on your lid remains intact and keeps its saturation. You definitely have enough time to play with it and smudge it, but once it sets fairly well, and for the most part it really almost barely, it almost doesn't even, it almost doesn't fade away, almost, not quite. But for the 8 hours that you're going to be wearing it on top of primer, it really doesn't budge or transfer or do anything weird. If you apply it on its own as a base without a primer, it does smudge and it does crease and it does fade. It's not ideal in that case. So I highly recommend using a primer all the time, but especially when you're using these, especially if you want to get the best result out of them. This was the shade 5. I'm actually going to swatch one more because this one is also absolutely stunning. This is the shade 55. Look at this gorgeous copper. I love it. Now, so this is how it looks, and I'm only going to tap the outer edges. Yes. Oh wow. Such a beautiful, beautiful color. Such a beautiful, beautiful pigmentation. I love these so much, and I love them enough to have 8 of them. I don't really see myself having more because I looked at the rest of the shades and there are plenty. There's enough, you know, colorful shades and neutral shades. There's almost no matte shades. Maybe there's just one black, and that's about that. But when I use an eyeshadow crayon, I don't want it to be matte. Maybe that's just me, but I don't want my eyeshadow crayons to be matte, so I don't mind them all being shimmery and glittery. Finally, for the last product, we are talking about the brand new, at least here locally, Long-Lasting Liquid Eyeshadow. at least here I believe there are 6 shades. 3 are matte, or 2 are matte and the rest are shimmery. So it's either 3 shimmery, 3 matte, or 2 matte and 4 shimmery. I have 1 shimmer shade, but I also swatched the matte to see how it blends because I was curious. It blended fine and it looked fine, but the color wasn't really interesting enough for me to buy, so I didn't buy it. I skipped on it. But this is everything. This is the color 03, and this is what I have all over my lids as a second layer of base. I applied one of these as a base. I applied this shade. I can't really, wait, this shade, because the background isn't white and it's probably gonna be in white font. So I don't remember what color that was, but then I went ahead and I layered this all over it. This is a shimmery, let's do it here. This is a shimmery liquid shadow. It's even metallic and it blends so beautifully. This is another one of those shadows that I like to start blending it by tapping the outer edges. And then once I feel like I've tapped the outer edges enough and the center started to set, I start to tap the center of it to make sure that it's all even in terms of the layer. But look at that. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Isn't it gorgeous? Ugh, I can't even. So this kind of reminds me of the Danessa Myricks foils, but in a much more user-friendly packaging. In my opinion, the tubes that the foils come in should have been replaced with a packaging like this, because her foils are somewhat liquidy, that each time I try to squirt just the right amount, it ends up being like a bath of like a bathtub of shimmer, which isn't necessarily what I want. I just wanted the right amount, and it's always like always too much product. So I appreciate this packaging because of the fact that I have more control over how much I get each time I apply it all over my lids. This is a very shimmery shadow, very shimmery, and it is very comfortable to use. It feels comfortable on the lids. Sometimes when you use a liquid shadow, it can almost dry in this tight manner that you almost feel like your eyeshadow is going to crack because it's so dry and tight. This feels comfortable without having this emollients that you feel like it's smudging everywhere. It sets quickly. Well, not too quickly. It sets relatively quickly, where it gives you enough time to play with it and smudge it in, but it's not too quick that you feel like you don't have time to do that. And once it sets, it really doesn't move, it doesn't flake, it doesn't smudge, it doesn't crease, it does nothing. It's so beautiful. And this gorgeous sheen, I mean, like, look at the back of my hand. It looks delicious. It looks delicious. I love these. There weren't many shades, but I feel like one of the reasons that there aren't enough shades is because this is a relatively new product, at least locally here in Israel. There are only 6, as I said, and the shades seem to be very conventional. Nothing wild. There aren't enough neutrals for there to be enough colors. So I don't know, you're gonna have to see the colors that they have and see if you like any of them. This was my favorite because in my opinion, this is something that I can wear almost every day. I'm dying to get my hands on the Dry Milky Way to see if it compares in terms of color. And since I already have another one of the Dry foils, I want to see if it compares in terms of reflex. This is it for today's video. I really hope that it was informative. Take a look again at the beauty that is the back of my hand. I love how the back of my hand looks at the moment. I kind of don't even want to wash it, but I probably should because I want to film more videos while I'm at it. But thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!